Welcome to Care Sandwich, the podcast where we dive into the success journeys of law firm owners across the country. I'm Margarita Eberline, your host and the founder of Marketing Boss, a fractional chief marketing officer firm for law firms. On this show, we'll explore the challenges, strategies, and victories that have shaped law firms and how they wrap every interaction with care. Because we believe that caring isn't just a value, it's a strategy for success. So grab your favorite sandwich, sit back, and let's dig into a conversation filled with insight, inspiration, and of course, a lot of care. Hey everyone, welcome to today's episode of Care Sandwich. I'm your host, Margarita Eberline, and today I have Kevin from Rohan Law here as a guest. And Kevin Schumaker is an attorney, and he is definitely got so many skills, and we're going to talk about all of the things that he does with his time and his creativity right outside the legal, even outside the legal profession. So Kevin, tell us your story. Let's start with your legal journey, and then we'll get into the other story, the other side of you.
Sounds good. Hello, good to see you again. My legal story starts not as a legal story. I was a graduate student in philosophy and had a girlfriend at the time who was also a graduate student. We were both doctoral students, and we realized that there wasn't much of a future in philosophy. And so one day we sat down and said, we need other careers. One of us should study computer science and one should go to law school. Mm-hmm. And somewhat randomly, I became the one going to law school.
Okay. And why not computer science? Just out of curiosity. I can think of
I have no idea. Because I argue a lot.
Yeah. And you can't argue with computers.
Exactly. So she went off, studied computer science. I went off and studied the law, got a job in a law firm immediately upon getting into law school, because I worked on their computers. And because I knew that area, worked my way up, and I just fell in love with the courtroom. I just fell in love with standing in that setting and presenting my client's story.
So speaking of the word story, here in Care Sandwich, we interview a lot of attorneys, and we talk about work-life balance and really tapping into things that make you happy. And one of the things that makes you happy is telling stories, which definitely you use in your legal career, I'm sure, especially in court. And you also have this amazing book that you put out. Let's talk about it. Like, how did it, now that you mentioned about the philosophy, but yeah, how did this happen? Like, how does this fit in, to just your journey as an attorney, as a person? Like, this is really cool.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very excited about it. It's my first book. It's a collection of about 40 poems, as well as a philosophical essay about my theories on art. I've always wanted to write. I've always wanted to write a novel, write the great American novel. And while I was struggling to do that, I met a poet, and she was a wonderful poet, but she couldn't read her poetry publicly very well. So she asked me, can you help me? You're a courtroom attorney. Can you help me? I said, absolutely.
Because you can stand in front of people and deliver an argument. Okay. Yeah.
Exactly. So we got together. I started helping her, and as I did, I started writing some poetry as well as examples, and I just fell in love with it. It for me became the most sort of rewarding creative outlet. I'm 60. I turned 60 back in November. It is the most rewarding creative outlet I have found in 60 years. Mm-hmm. And then, coincidentally, as I began to write poetry, I started to understand how that way of telling a story could be used in the law. And almost immediately, I started changing how I argued in court.
Wow. And that's so interesting. I was talking to a law firm owner the other day about work-life balance, and he mentioned that part of the reason why he doesn't feel maybe as burnt out is because he does take time to do things that he's passionate about. But similar to what you just shared, he ties it back to his profession. So I think that's amazing. And now, Kevin, when it comes to the legal profession, I would imagine, because I read some of your work in here, there's a lot of emotion here. And I know that, with what you express as an attorney in a courtroom, many times maybe more from a logical standpoint, an argument, a legal argument. How do you balance all of the emotion that I see you're capable of here and temper it and deliver legal arguments in a way that like taps into the best of here? But I don't know, like it's almost like you have to spin it differently, if that makes sense. Or earlier before we got on the podcast, we were talking about creating a narrative for your clients, for example. Like, how do you do that without going to the extreme and really getting into the person's story that they're living, and really you caring and seeing that person for a flawed human being that maybe needs some help in the moment?
I think that's a great question, because I think it really hits on two important things. First, I think most attorneys make a mistake in how they practice law, because they start from that logical place. And I found for years, I used to say that as an attorney, I became an attorney because I wanted to prove I was the smartest person in the room. And then I learned juries and judges do not care who the smartest person in the room is.
Yeah.
Judges and juries watch movies, they read books, they watch TV shows. They are about stories. So when you ask a question like, how do I temper it? I think part of my journey really has been, how do I not temper it? How do I learn to go deeper into that, to allow myself to be more open, more vulnerable, in order that by proxy, my client's story is presented more open, more vulnerable, using my humanity to display their humanity.
That's so interesting. You know what you just made me realize? That I think as a marketer, I skew more emotional, and maybe that's why I asked you the question that way. Like, that's interesting. Note to self. That's cool. So Kevin, when you were writing this book, because there's another thing that comes up in my conversations with attorneys, did you debate at all with yourself as far as what are people going to think? Because like, I know as a marketer, right, I encourage attorneys to create content, whether it's video content or written content, creative content like this. Because I think it's important to put yourself out there as a person, as a personal brand. And the pushback that I often get is, but what are people going to think?
Well,
how did you handle that?
Well, I'm lucky. I have been sober now for 16 years. I've been in recovery for 16 years. And one of the things that recovery taught me was not to be ashamed of who you are. And it's by being open about my recovery that I've been able to help other people in their journey. So
wow.
I think for the last 16 years, it has been a process of learning that not to hide these things, to put them out there, to be as open about who I am, about my emotions. I'm sort of famous for it. When I got the job I have now, my boss asked me at the interview, how will you know when you're upset about something? And I said, you'll know. Suppressing these things does not help you, the person. It does not help your firm. It does not help your clients. It is putting your emotions out there honestly, not irrationally, but honestly, that I think that's actually what protects you.
I hope you're enjoying the conversation and your sandwich as much as we are. I want to take a moment to share a few words about our sponsor, Marketing Boss. If you're a law firm owner looking to supercharge your growth, our team at Marketing Boss is here to help. We've got over a decade of experience and a proven track record, and we specialize in growing law firms like yours with data-driven marketing leadership. So if you own a law firm and you're ready to get a predictable, steady flow of cases from your marketing, let's connect at marketing-boss.com.
And I think that's such, not even for attorneys, but I think that's a very human, journey, a human process that we all can relate to. I was actually having dinner conversation with one of my best friends last night, and we were talking about, we're both divorced and, in our 40s, and we were talking about how we're both going through this process of actually getting to know ourselves. And we were like, I asked her, I was like, what were you like when you were a little girl? Do you ever go back there to and she's like, oh, I used to climb over stuff and get in trouble. And I was like, we should get into more trouble. That's probably the real us, and she brought up the point. Yeah, but society teaches us to, color within the lines, to conform, because that's what makes the whole social structure work. But it's where do you draw that line? And I think in the legal profession, it's even more intense and more pronounced, right? Because as an attorney, and this is my assumption based on what I've observed working with a lot of attorneys, as an attorney, you're encouraged to be very methodical, to be very structured, to be very cautious, to not mess up, because a typo could be legally, catastrophic, right? And things like that. So it's almost like it's a trigger where I might even describe it as a sort of PTSD, right? Yeah. And I could imagine, if it's hard for normal people, it must be that much harder for attorneys to get out of that side of your brain where it's you're trained in your profession to not color outside the line, so to speak, to not be expressive like this. This is why when I was reading your book, I was like, this is really cool that it came from somebody that was literally trained not to think like this. So what advice would you give to somebody that's teetering between being the attorney they want to be and actually going into their creative side? And maybe they think, well, I don't know if it's safe, or, aside from, hey, get comfortable with yourself, what does that step-by-step really look like? What is a baby step, for example, that somebody can take when they're still in that space of, I can't mess up, I can't, what are people going to think? And they want to get to here. They want to get to that just be yourself space. But what are the baby steps?
It's a hard question, because I think it's going to obviously vary person to person. Mm-hmm. What I've been training a younger attorney recently. And when I train a young attorney, the biggest thing that I push them to, and that I pushed her to, is from day one, walk into the middle of that courtroom and stand there and look around. Everybody in that room is nervous, and everybody's coloring within the lines because they're afraid, because they've been taught by people who only color inside the lines, and they're all holding themselves back. But if you can break through just a little bit, now I make jokes in court all the time. I'm sort of famous. Once I've made the courtroom laugh, I'm good, because then everybody else relaxes and those boundaries go away, and a room will become much freer, not just for you, but for everybody in the room. If you just take that initial step, walk in the room, walk to the center of that room and look around and know you're safe.
So pause and observe and become aware that everybody feels probably the way you feel, if not more nervous.
If not more nervous.
That's powerful. That's powerful. Now, where can somebody find a copy of your book? Tell us about, where is this available? Where can they buy it? So the title is That'll Leave a Mark. And I don't know if you all can see in the video, but you've got this, I mean, it's kind of funny, but I've got a little bit of a dark sense of humor. He's getting in the jugular. And there's a lot in here. It's not it's not like really in one category, your poetry. There's poetry about love, there's poetry about life. So where can somebody find a copy of this?
I've been very fortunate. My book is now available on Amazon. It's Barnes and Noble, any of your online retailers. I like to recommend people go to bookshop.org. It's like Amazon. It's like Barnes and Noble, but when you buy from them, you're actually buying from a local independent bookstore. So, it's a fantastic resource right now.
And what advice would you give to maybe an attorney or a law firm owner that's watching this and thinking, you know what, I'm going to step out and write something? What was the process like to publish? Give us some tips on how to publish a book like this.
Reach out to a local writers group. Go to an open mic. Go to a writing group and just find somebody who's done it. That's what that friend of mine who I helped learn to speak and learn to do open mics and learn to do public speaking, she had done it 4 times. And so at every step of the process, it's like, hey, I'm confused. She'd be like, calm down, you can do it, here's what we do. And it's much easier than you think. It's not that expensive. It's not that hard. It's it's been a lot of fun. Right now I'm doing promotional videos that are just ridiculous and I'm having a good time with it.
Yeah, and in your description, it says that it's poetry that explores the beauty found in sadness, the weight of memory, and the quiet moments that shape us. I found it to be quite uplifting. It's like you go deep into dark spaces, but it's always like you spin it around.
I'm happy to hear that because I think that for me is that's what I'm trying for. I am a person who, I always joke around. People go, oh, look at that ugly bug. And I'm always like, no, look at it. It's actually beautiful if you take the time. And that's, I think, a lot of what my poetry is taking the pain in our life, taking our divorces and our addictions and our broken hearts and all the things that we thought would break us and find the beautiful thing that's in there and celebrating that.
That's nice. And it's very healing. I really believe with my life experiences that I've had, and I wish I would have gotten this sooner, that everything is a gift. Even the painful things are a gift in that they're teaching you something. Yeah. Maybe when somebody does something that's rude or disrespectful, it's painful, but then it teaches you where maybe your ego still had to die. I had a conference call the other day with one of my clients, and there was a PR lady who was super rude to me and spoke down to me. And I was like, okay, whatever. I just got off the call and I didn't worry about it. And my client was like, I apologize. She was so rude. And I was like, yeah, but I'm good. Like, I don't need her validation. Like, I know what my, experience, if she thinks I'm an idiot, that's okay. That's her opinion. And I was like, wow, I've gotten here, but the only reason I got there to that situation was because so many other times before I had been hurt. I had been offended. I had been made to feel. I had felt like, oh, maybe I'm less than, and I had to face those things through those painful experiences. And now I'm at the point where, whoever can have their opinion, I'm like, okay, move on, like whatever, like, have a blessed day. So
I was rejected recently for an opportunity related to this book, and I left, and there was a moment where I was mad, and then you go to that, you missed out. That's okay. That just frees up that day for me to do something else with somebody else.
Well, and the other thing that I bet discourages a lot of attorneys or professionals from putting out creative works that are passion projects is the idea or the belief that, oh, well, my job is this. Like, that's not going to make me money, or that's not like, I really believe that when you do things like this that are expressive, that you do it just because you love it, like, I feel like that adds a lot of value, and it's not taking away, because you're not looking for book sales, and it's not like the stress, I'm sure you're looking for book sales, but it's not that serious, right? It's like you did this as a labor of love, to put it out, to contribute. So I think that's very commendable and very exciting. So Kevin, once again, walk us through, how do people get a hold of a copy of this book? Where can they order it? And then if they have questions and want to get in touch with you, are you open to that? And if so, how can people get in touch with you as well?
Absolutely. The book's available on all the major retailers right now, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and bookshop.org. I like to push people in that direction. I'm available. Easiest place to reach me, especially for my creative work, is Instagram or Threads, and that's at Kevin Schumaker ESQ Esquire. Reach out to me there. Let me know, hey, I'm a lawyer, or I'm a doctor, or I'm this, or I'm that, and I'm interested in getting into a creative project. Hey, we'll grab coffee. Let's do this. This is fun. It's fun for me to talk. You reach out to me, I get to talk about it with someone. That's a good day for me.
That's awesome. And thank you, Kevin, for reminding all of us to make time for passion projects, to have a creative outlet. It's so healthy, and we deserve it. We deserve to give that to ourselves. So thank you for that reminder. And thank you all for tuning into this episode of Care Sandwich. I am going to ask Kevin, I'm going to ask you, Kevin, to answer one last question before we wrap up, because, the program is called Care Sandwich. We have to know from every single guest, what is your favorite sandwich?
Gonna have to have a little context here. When I was back in Kansas as a lawyer, I had a friend, an older attorney who would take cases out in the middle of nowhere, Kansas. And he'd hire me to go with because he wanted company. And we would drive down these old highways into the middle of nowhere. And for lunch, we'd go to a diner. And at these diners, I would always get a pork tenderloin sandwich. And it would always be a pork tenderloin as big as your face. The best sandwich is a pork tenderloin in some diner on the side of a 2-lane road out in the middle of nowhere, where you can gaze out the window and just see sky for miles.
That sounds delicious. I could picture it. Are you a writer? Wow, that sounds delicious. Thank you so much for sharing. And remember, guys, if you want to grab a copy of That'll Leave a Mark, you can find it at all of the major booksellers. And we definitely want you to get in touch with Kevin if you want to take that step and create something like this. Do it, because you deserve it. And we'll catch you all on the next episode of Care Sandwich. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Care Sandwich. Remember, the way we care for our clients, our teams, and ourselves can make all the difference in our success. Until next time, keep caring, keep growing, and I'll see you on the next episode of Care Sandwich.